would you believe I was doing shoe testing? So I was near the airport doing shoe testing in a very hot place, and had to run in all these different shoes, and very hot and sweaty, and dash my way in here. And I'm just going to get like a drink.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, awesome. I started the recording, so I'll just kind of like do the quick intro. I am Maggie Gutturl. I'm an ultra runner. I'm with a coach with WildPeak Collective. Brittany is our head coach. The call's hosted by Halo, and we're doing the hotels for Peaks and Pines. Really quick about Halo, it's just a hotel booking platform, but we're for runners and supporters of the race. We're really like, Hillary is the founder. She wasn't able to be on it today. She lives in New York City, and she founded the company based on this pain point of like wanting to go to these races, travel, get out of New York, but not understanding like where to stay and the logistics of the race, not knowing if there'll be other runners at the hotel, and just kind of like wanting to be able to meet people and like have a community outside of just the race. So she started Halo a couple years ago, and it's been really fun. And so we've done some of the hotels for Peaks and Pines. I don't know if anyone's a Halo guest at one of the hotels, but Brittany's like our community manager. We also have a partnership with Transrockies, WildPeak Collective does. So she'll also be there in that capacity. So you guys will see her around a lot. But then Brittany, also I'll do a quick intro because I don't think you'll give all your accolades, but she's an amazing runner, ultra runner. She's second at Western States, which is like the Super Bowl of ultra running. She's run a ton of Transrockies events. She won a couple years ago. We're both kind of recovering from different injuries at the moment. But yeah, so Brittany is kind of Canadian. She's actually American. She kind of lives in Canada. Her husband is the course director for Transrockies, so she's very knowledgeable in all areas, including the kind of strategy and coaching part. So yeah, Brittany, I'll let you kick it off with your presentation. And you guys, this is really, since it's a small call too, feel free to chime in, ask questions. We'll have time at the end to kind of chat through things and strategies. Brittany will also take us through the course, so you can like kind of get a feel for what the course is. It's a new format or a new kind of new race for Transrockies. So okay,
yeah, sweet. Thanks, Maggie. Did we go over everybody? We have Patty at a full pint with a hybrid, probably half pint for the long day. Do we have half? What are the other? You others, what are we racing? Full pint, half pint.
This is. Oh, go ahead, Patty. Oh, this is Michelle. I'm like about 2 minutes from being off camera here. I'm just pulling in the garage, but I'm gonna try the full, but you know, I left flexibility as an option. So I kind of wanted to see the elevation, what you suggest. Is there like a cutout point if I can't make it? You know, just all the questions.
Awesome. I'm doing the 33 miler. I'm brand new to all this. I don't really, when you're saying the half pint and the full pint, I'm doing Saturday the 33 miler.
Okay, cool. So we have a good array of everybody doing a little bit of everything, which is awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to pull up just the presentation that I made, and we're going to be going, oops. Okay, yeah. So I can't see you guys because of Teams. So just interrupt, or Maggie will help monitor so that this can be a fluid conversation. But so yeah, we have Peaks and Pines and WildPeak Collective. It's cool to be able to be here as a community manager, kind of putting all of the hats on of like a lover of Transrockies races, a lover of just trail running and the community in general, but then also like a partner coach with Maggie, and then learning more about Halo, which I think is pretty amazing what they do. So let's talk about Transrockies. So there's a half pint, a full pint. So that's the 3-day stage race. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a shorter distance, that's the half pint, and then the typically longer distance of the full pint. I would say that Transrockies is really amazing in the terms of, because I know there's so many people like, oh, the long day on stage 2, like what if I don't make it? Am I going to be able to finish the race? Or like how tight are the cutoffs? All of those things. And I would say that it is a very fluid community or just a race experience where they're really, really great. So there are cutoffs on day 2. But as far as like being able to do a hybrid of like, oh, I'm worried about the 33 miler on day 2, so I'm going to back off to the half pint, or I'm going to miss a cutoff. Does that mean I can't do stage 3? And the answer is no, you're going to be fine. They'll let you continue on. So there is a lot of flexibility, but just it's a community and a really great experience versus a strict, rigid race experience, I suppose. Okay, so stage 1. So this is Friday. I will actually, first of all, like if you go to their website, they have a lot of really great things. So we'll kind of pop on there and you'll see some of it if you haven't been on there already. But just a little shout out on Thursday night, there's packet pickup, there's a race briefing, but there's also a little shakeout run that I'm helping host. Me and another person, we kind of do a front runner and a back runner, and we get a group and we do a little shakeout run. So if you want to see me there, I'll be there. And you should do it because it's super fun. And so that's Thursday. So now here we are on Friday. So this is right on the website here, where they give you all this information as far as this is a 1 p.m. start. It's only 5.5 miles for the full pint and 3.0 miles for the half pint. But we look at the vertical gain and we look at the elevation profile here of you are basically climbing the mountain. So in the full pint, you have a little less steep descent, but in the half pint, you are going straight down the mountain. So this one I will put out there because they had to make some last minute adjustments. So the website right now is not up to date with this. So you guys are getting the hot off the press updated stage 1, which is why I don't have a course marking over here, but we can kind of overlay it ourselves. And then their CalTopo doesn't have the interactive map like we'll see for stage 2 or stage 3. But basically it was on Snow Mountain, I think it's called, but it's shifted over just a little bit to Bear Mountain, and it's on that ski resort. So it's still very similar if you're going up the ski resort. So if you can see my cursor, it's up one of these basically ski runs, probably on a cat track road. And then it goes, so obviously here for the half pint, it makes a shorter little loop. Here's our aid station. You guys can see my cursor, correct?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So here's the aid station here, which is 1.2 miles in. But if we look at that, 1.2, you're essentially at the top of the mountain, or yeah, it's right there. And then here's the top of the mountain. And then for the half pint, you're just going to go straight back down. So we could kind of put that over here. If you're on the ski hill the whole time, it doesn't sound like you're bushwhacking or anything. So I imagine you are on cat track. And then for the full pint, it's just a little bit longer. And actually for the stage race, when it comes to like thinking about strategy, because I've been at a whole bunch of stage races now, and I have seen some people, like a friend of mine who came from a mountain biking background. She was such an adrenaline junkie that she just loved to hammer hard all the time, but she learned really quickly about hammering downhill on day 1 of a stage race, and she wrecked her toes, got massive blisters, and then had to deal with the repercussions of that this was a 5-day stage race. She had to deal with that for X amount of days after that, and she ended up leading the first 3 days and then blowing up day 4 and 5 because of her feet. So this is kind of that word of caution for day 1, whether it's the full pint or the half pint, but looking at the profile, particularly because of the steep grade descent on the half pint, just being mindful of you're on day 1 of 3. So not necessarily saying you have to back off, but just being mindful of not blowing up your quads and not ruining your feet with blisters, hammering the front of your shoes. And this is just a little secondary thought of, if you don't already do this, half sizing up your shoes so that your feet don't hit the front of your shoes inside the shoe is generally a good idea. So this one's pretty, so the full pint, you see that we go over here and it seems like we're getting onto some single track. I believe that once you kind of get off the cat track and you're up at the top of the ski hill, you kind of skirt around and then you get onto some what seems like mountain biking trails for descending. I haven't been on these trails, but I believe it is fairly buffed out. Like none of these courses seem overly technical as far as tons of roots and rocks or like real steep pitches. I mean, there are steep pitches, but that's generally associated with the ski resort. So the trails do seem to be pretty nice, buttery, beautiful, fun running type of single track trails. And that's what I expect this to be on day one, is just a nice kind of good grade where you really could open up if you wanted to. And it should be some nice, fun, flowy single track down to the finish line. So that's kind of stage one. We'll talk about a little, I'll probably keep sprinkling in some strategy, but then we'll get into that. But if you have any questions, by all means, interrupt me. Okay, so stage two. So this can be a single standalone, 33 miles, or it's part of the stage race. So stage two is our pretty big epic. It's the Skyline's the limit, because you traverse along Skyline up here once you do all your climbing. So we can see this one for the full pint, 33.3 miles, 4,850 feet elevation gain. We have a whole bunch of aid stations, so we'll look at those as we go. Half pint starts a little bit afterwards. We have the Dawn Patrol, which if you're not familiar with Dawn Patrol, they do a really good job of, you have the full smattering of athletes that come to these races, where there are people that are, they're wanting a little extra time, or they know they're going to be hiking more. They talk about this extensively. Lisa is the gal that's generally leading out Dawn Patrol, and she's really great about, like, do you actually fit in Dawn Patrol? Because basically she's pretty adamant about, if you're running and you're going to get ahead, like, then you don't need to be in Dawn Patrol. You should go run like more of the standard race, I suppose. So Lisa's the resource there, where if you're at pre-race meeting or something, you could talk to her or talk to the race director if you're not sure. But it is that early start if you're worried about, I don't know if I'll make the cutoffs, or I feel like I would benefit from a little extra time. So then we have half pint is 15.4 miles and 2,460 feet of elevation gain. So we can see the elevation profiles down here. The courses are really similar. I'm going to open this up in CalTopo so we can see the interactive side of it. But the little snapshot here, well, maybe I'll just switch over. Let's see which one. Okay. So I'm going to share this tab.
Okay,
Patty
has a quick question.
Oh, sure. Perfect.
Yeah, just it looked like on day two, you've got that huge descent again if you're doing the half pint, right? So
both of them will have that, yes.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, because we're back on the ski hill. And so, yep, hardening our quads and preparing for some downhill is, and adjusting our strategy is a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. So if you haven't, you can go onto the Peaks and Pines website. You can get onto stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Then you can see basically the content that I just shared, the little briefing of all the information. But then you can get to here and then click on, open in CalTopo, and then here we are, which is really cool because there's a lot of different interactions. So I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to keep it right now because purple is the half pint, so it helps us kind of clearly tell some of the delineations between the two courses. They have, the aid stations are fantastic. They have repeat people that come back to all of these events and help out with course management. So they do, my husband's the course, like one of the course managers. So he takes it very seriously as far as marking properly for people. So it is marked really well, but it is something obviously being mindful of, but at important junctions, there's generally people there. But you can see here, so we're at the start and finish, and then we're gonna come up, I could zoom in a little bit more. And actually I should switch, well, all right, let's just we'll do this separate just to make it clear. So we're going to start with the half pint, and then I'm going to click here. So now we can see both while it's on the elevation profile. So you guys can see that when I'm moving my cursor along the bottom, you can see how it's moving the pink little dot along the course. Everyone can see that okay? Okay. Because I think that is a good visual of like, you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, I'm climbing, and I get all the way up here, and I went past it. I'm at Grandview aid station, so aid station 1. And then I'm going to keep going. So now I'm traversing, but still kind of climbing, getting to the high point of the ski hill. So you can see here on the topo map, that's all the ski hill runs. And now I'm going to go all the way down. I believe that you seem to be on a mountain bike trail, but we're not 100% sure. But based on the mapping, it looks like you're on a single track. It doesn't look like you're going down like a big ski run or anything like that. So then we get to the bottom of the ski hill, and now you're at Snow Summit aid station. And we can go back to the other page and kind of look at those mileage, so you get an idea of like how many miles are in between the aid stations. Because again, they do a good job. However, we have to look at, even if you're only a couple of miles, you know, if you have that 1,000 feet of elevation gain, that could be a little bit longer duration, even though it's only a couple of miles between aid stations. So here we're at Snow Summit. Now this is where we kind of do like a little lollipop. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see that it actually is a lollipop. Maybe that's too far. But so we're at Snow Summit. We go out, we go to the right, we climb to get to our checkpoint. So this is not an aid station. There will just be someone there basically turning you back around. And then you're going to go down, take a right again, so that you're doing that lollipop in the counterclockwise direction. We get back to Snow Summit aid station, so you can refill for a second time if you need to, and then you're straight on home to the finish. So that is the half pint. So a good mix of cat track to get up, and then good single track. Once you get up towards Grandview, that's when you are on the Skyline Trail. That's kind of the iconic trail of that area. So that should be a pretty darn beautiful section of the course. That's all single track. Then you get to the top of the ski hill, and then it is a mountain biking park. So I believe that's kind of the descent path, is down a mountain biking path. And then you have kind of like gravel road or dirt road to kind of traverse along the bottom before you get back on. I'm not sure if that is single track, to do the little lollipop and then get back on that road. So I do believe you get on some single track again out here, and then get back onto this road to get all the way over to the finish. So that's a half pint. So super similar, but obviously we're adding on for the full pint. Let's do that same thing. Okay, so we have the start. So same start, but we get somewhere up here, right in here. Let me zoom in. There we go. We get right here. Whoops. And that's where the full pint's going to take a right, where the half pint would have taken a left. So we add on this whole section out here. That's different than the half pint. Not that you guys are going to have any idea, but I imagine there will be signs that it's, and probably a marshal that's half pint this way, full pint this way. So this is also the point where you're on road to get up to this area, and now you're getting on single track. So I think there's a good mix of single track and road, but I think single track all the way out to this first aid station. That's a different one that the half pint doesn't go to. And then we get back over here, and now we're back on that original road. And then we're still climbing. So looking at, there's a good little descent and then a climb back up. And then it's, I would call this like punchy up, down. Super fun, but probably more uphill and downhill than you really realize based off of looking at that profile. Let's see where we are. Okay, so now we're getting out this way, looping around, and then here's where we get to aid station 2, Mill Creek aid station. And if we look, it's essentially, we get to this aid station and then we're just doing a big loop and we get back to this aid station for a second time. So we'll go do our big loop and then back to the aid station. So I believe out here we are probably, I think now we're getting onto some road because we're connecting to that Skyline Traverse Trail again. So this whole section is kind of that iconic, beautiful part. Not that the whole, I would imagine the whole thing is quite beautiful. But here's that Skyline Traverse single track. And we've linked up to somewhere in here is where the half pint would have joined in. And so you're basically merging courses again because everybody goes to that Grandview aid station, which is close to the top of the ski hill. But we have to go a little bit further, as we can see on the elevation profile, because now we're at the top of the ski hill. And so then it's the exact same finish of go down that mountain bike path, get onto that gravel road, take a right, get out to the checkpoint, turn back, take a right again. So you take the return path, the correct direction, get back to the Snow Summit aid station, and then head on home to the finish. Okay, so that is the course. So let's go back to the PowerPoint because then we can kind of look at it. You guys are now seeing the correct picture again. Because we can see here, so the brown course is the half pint. There's one error in here because it's marking, so it says that there's 4 aid stations, but on this one there's actually only the Grandview Snow Summit. This is a checkpoint, so one of these is showing the checkpoint, which unless they say otherwise will simply be a person turning you back around. But you could ask, it's not a very far distance, but you could ask, like, maybe they would have a water stop there or something. But as of what I know right now, it is simply a person turning you back around, no aid there at all. So it would just be the 3 aid stations, climbing up to Grandview, traversing, descending the ski hill down to Snow Summit, hitting the checkpoint, which is no aid, but then getting back to Snow Summit and then the finish. Those would be the aid stations. And so we can look at it, so Grandview is 3.6 miles, but you have a whole lot of climbing to get there. And then Snow Summit the first time is 8.9 miles. And then Snow Summit the second time is 13.3 miles. So then for the full pint, we have Aspen Glen. So if we remember, we're going up, but we take the full pint, we take that right-hand turn to add on that loop, and we head out or get out to Aspen Glen aid station. So that's what this one right here. I believe, yeah. So Aspen Glen is at 6 miles in. So then we have all of that climbing, getting back out here to get to that Mill Creek. So Mill Creek right here, which is at 14.2 miles. Then we do that little loop, which is only adding on a little bit because we hit Mill Creek a second time at 17.5 miles. And then we finish the loop and start the Skyline Traverse to get to Grandview, which is at 21.8 miles. Then we keep traversing to the top of the ski hill, and then that steep descent down to Snow Summit, which is 26.7 miles. And then we go out to the checkpoint for the turnaround spot, turn back, get to Snow Summit the second time, which is 31.2 miles, and then you're home free to the 33.3 at the finish. So you can kind of see them along here, and then, you know, in your preparations, or if you're still looking at any of this, to really look at the course profile, because this is something where obviously the half pine is shorter, but you have a monstrous climb and then a very lovely steep descent, and then a nice runnable finish with a lovely climb up to the checkpoint and then back down. You know, so from a strategy point, if we're doing the half pint and this is day 2, we'll see that day 3 is quite runnable. You know, so again, if you trash your legs on day 1 and 2, which there is an element, you're going to trash your legs for sure. That's the beauty of the stage race, but we will talk about that because you can do a whole lot more than you think. You know, so as long as you're not just completely reckless, or if you're super mindful about being proactive with your recovery, you know, you're going to be fine on this downhill, but it is something to just be mindful of, knowing your susceptibilities, knowing, you know, just how comfortable you are with steep downhill, how much access you have to stuff like this to kind of practice and things like that in your preparations. Can kind of help your approach to it, because day 3 is quite runnable. So for the full pint, this is where the strategy comes of, like, you've got that monstrous climb right out the get-go, and then you drop all that descent, and then you basically climb it again, and then you've got all of that punchy up down terrain that you will notice that over time. And now we're at 20 miles and you've done a lot more vert than you realized. And then we hit the high point of the course, and then you have that really steep descent with another really good climb back up and then back down. So really it is that whole thing of being mindful. We'll talk again more about this, about fueling properly, first of all, so that you can keep your whole body healthy, happy, and optimized and energized, while also pacing yourself strategically so that, you know, you have some climb, so that you don't hit that last climb at the end and be completely gassed because you didn't fuel enough, or because you were super excited about it and you sprinted that first monstrous hill, you know, and then you ran out of gas at the end. So there is some strategy according to that, but at the same time, it is kind of, I mean, this is the fun adventure part of it, of like, trust your body, you can do more than you think you can, so don't feel like you have to hold back on absolutely everything. Okay, questions or anything on stage 2? Okay, let's go on to stage.
Question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, when you stage 3, is that the next day? You're moving on to the next day?
We can stay here because actually I just saw my notes on here because I looked at this. So we could talk about the notes that I have added, because there is a drop bag for the full pint at Grandview Aid Station. I know I saw somebody on the Facebook page that was talking about that. Or like if you're, so Grandview is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. So 21.8 miles is Grandview Aid Station. So you could have a drop bag, which could be super handy, because when we talk about a 33-mile race, you know, it really depends about like your fueling and your hydration. So I will say we can skip ahead because I used this picture on purpose here, because Transrockies does a really good job to have a robust amount of snacks at aid stations. And then they do have an electrolyte drink sponsor. I would have to look at the website to see if it's still the one I think it is. But basically it's something.
It's Goo.
Oh, is it Goo? Okay, even better.
They said they had Goo. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So perfect. So they'll have, I'm assuming, gels. They have all of the real food and chips and M&Ms and all sorts of things. But then they have some sort of electrolyte drink too. But I think it is smart where if you're somebody, I mean, I think we're all a little bit unique in terms of, you know, I'm pretty lucky where if I ran out of my electrolyte fluid and Goo was at the, because I don't use Goo, sorry Goo, you know, but I don't use Goo. And so if I had to refill at the aid station and use Goo, I'm going to be fine. But I know some people have really sensitive stomachs where if they've been training and practicing with whatever electrolyte mix, they know that they might not, you know, their stomach would probably get into, they would have GI issues or something if they switched over to having something that they're not used to. And that's where a drop bag could be really helpful for somebody. I know that, you know, like I have friends that are dairy free, gluten free, you know, all sorts of restrictions where Transrockies also does a good job of being mindful of that, but it's like I know that this particular friend of mine, you know, she's very particular, so she has her snacks because if there's some bit of cross contamination or issue, like it's going to affect her performance and obviously affect her overall enjoyment of the day. And so she's pretty particular about what she eats, and that's where a drop bag could be really essential. But let's say there's other things of, you know, like I want to reapply sunscreen and things like that, or I really want, you know, like maybe I need to change out some socks and have fresh socks and shoes or whatever. Like you have the option to do that in the full pint. As far as cutoffs go, so this is what I'm aware of right now, but because I know, was it Rachel or no, it was one of you either way. Sorry, I'm not looking at the screen to look at the names, but if you're worried about cutoffs, what I would recommend is obviously day one, when you pick up your packet, you can ask them specifically. And I think they're doing a race briefing where they would talk about this as well. But what I would tell you is this has happened at stage races or Transrockies races that I've been at before, where if you're not going to make a cutoff, you know, they get you a ride out of there, but it's not like you don't get your finisher's medal. It's not like you don't get to participate in the next day's stage. So they're pretty relaxed about that. But that does not mean that they're relaxed about if you showed up at Grandview aid station at 1:45, that doesn't mean they're relaxed to a point where they're going to let you keep going, because it is a safety issue of managing all the participants and making sure you're safe out there. So this is what I have as far as Grandview aid station cutoff at 1:30. And then you have until basically 4:30 is when they're going to close the finish line, but at the same time, like there may be some more intermediate cutoffs in there, but I couldn't find that up-to-date information, so I would clarify. But this is what I've heard as far as the 1:30 cutoff at Grandview, and then the overall course cutoff is 4:30 p.m.
And I'm sorry, it's on my phone, so it's hard for me to look exactly. Grandview is how many miles in for the full point?
Grandview is 21.8 miles.
Okay, so 1:30. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. But again, I would recommend, like, because I know that we were like, my husband's been on a bunch of calls, so there's talk of like, is there a course cutoff at Mill Creek, or is there something with that Snow Summit? I would double check once you get there to really get that firm, here is what the race is saying, because it's not on the website at this point. But I know that they are in their course management and all of that, like they're getting that information out there, but this is what we know for right now. Okay, moving on to stage 3, and then we'll talk all sorts of other logistics and questions can keep coming out. So stage 3, we are over by the high school in town. So that's kind of the start finish area. So full pint is 9.1 miles, 1,020 feet of elevation, which you're going to be super happy by then that it's, quote, only 1,000 feet of elevation gain. Though your legs will be quite tired, I imagine. And then the half pint is 5.5 miles and 560 feet of elevation gain. There's one aid station for each of the races. And so we can see here, I'm just going to switch over to the CalTopo so we can see that. This cam. Okay. So again, super similar and a lot of overlap, but obviously the full pint adds on. So I'm going to take out the full pint. So this is the half pint that we're looking at. And we're looking at the elevation profile again. So this is what seems like, I'm sure it's a combination of some road, but it's a lot of mountain biking course. But again, like buffed out, lovely running, beautiful terrain. I think of this as like buttery single track. So really, really nice to run on. Okay, so we're heading out from the high school on single track. Here's our first, okay, so our course marshal. So I'm going to put the other one back on there. There's several course marshal spots in this because it's a condensed area and it's kind of a windy course, which is super fun. But they have course marshals, so they take it really seriously, especially when half pint goes this way, full pint goes this way. You'll see course signs that say half pint and a big arrow. So as long as you keep some relative awareness for signs and marking, it is very clear. But in conjunction to that, at some critical spots, they have the course marshal there to make sure you're in the right spot or going the right direction. Okay, so we're at that course marshal spot. We're going, we take a right, and we do a big loop. So I'm gonna shift because we still have not gotten to the aid station. We're at another course marshal spot. Except, hello, that's the wrong, I'm on the full pint. Sorry, I was like, that's the wrong way. So here we go. Same, same, same. Okay, so here's our second course marshal spot where the full pint, as we just saw, goes out, but the half pint cuts left and starts heading back a little sooner. So that is why they get to aid station 1, which we said, I forget what the mileage was, but like 4.5 or something. I forget. Actually, it might be 3.5 for this one. Okay, so we can see how there's our biggest climb as we're getting to that second course marshal spot, and then a good downhill, and then a little punchy climb to get back up to the aid station, and then it's a little just rolling terrain that's mostly downhill. So back to that course marshal spot, because they turn you backward. Now you're going back to the finish the same way you came out, which is different for the full pint. So the half pint will finish the same way they came out. The full pint finishes a different way. So that's the half pint. So here's the full pint. Here's the elevation profile of the full pint. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so same start. Course marshal keeps us going the, I'd have to see if it's the same way. I believe this is the same way, because right here, we keep going. Okay, we're climbing up that same climb to the first course or I guess second course marshal, but I think that second one comes in later, or the first one comes in later. So here's where the courses deviate for the first time, because the full pint adds on this loop. Finishes the loop and then rejoins where the half pint went to begin with. And we get to that aid station 1. And now we get that wonderful downhill. And now we add on the second extra loop of we head out this way. So this is different than the half pint. So we went down, so of course we're going to climb back up. Oops. Okay, so then we kind of rejoin, get to that course marshal. So that's where I don't believe that's a course marshal spot in the beginning. It is at the end, because this is where the full pint adds on a different way to finish the race. And how lovely. Notice that elevation profile of a little bit of uphill at the finish. Okay, so that is, we'll go back to here so we can look at the checkpoint, because there's just the one, but it is at mile 3.4 for the half pint, and then mile 4.3 for the full pint. And then this one, no cutoffs for stage 1, no cutoffs for stage 3. Also, no drop bags for stage 1 or 3. Okay, so again, this looks like a really aggressive elevation profile, but look at where we're starting. Yes, there is the low point down here, but like 6,940 feet to 7,100 feet. So this looks aggressive but our total vertical is far less. So it's just a smaller scale here. But it is still something where, like, I look at this as a very, very runnable course with some good punchy uphills that you're going to notice, but some cruiser fun downhills that you get to celebrate day 3 on that. Okay, any questions about the courses before we go on to just some general recommendations for stage races and for particularly the ultra distance, but hydration and fueling in general? Okay, we shall head on then. So preparation. So here, just some things, because Big Bear, you know, it's June now. It seems like most of you guys are not unfamiliar with heat, you know, but Big Bear is going to be hot. The nice thing is the race organization knows this, and they will have supplies ready. So I know that they have a bunch of ice ready to be out at the aid stations. But I think the big thing here with hot temperatures, your fueling and your hydration becomes super, super critical. And so this generally is looking at, you know, having some sort of, like, there is no mandatory gear for this race, but you should reflect on, like, how much time do you think it's going to take you between aid stations, and then how much water or how much fluids do you think you will go through in that allotted amount of time. And when in doubt, in hot conditions, err on the side of having more, because you can, like this gentleman is doing here, he's obviously not using his water bottle, but like I have had races that I've had extra fluids on myself, and I have simply used, like, I realized maybe I'm not drinking them as quickly as I thought, but I used it to, you know, dump over my head and cool myself off. So that's the whole thing of, like, if you carry too much, you know, there is no such thing as too much, because you can use it to cool yourself off if you're realizing you're not needing it, but it really stinks to get behind and wish you had it and to not have it, because that can make your whole race experience go backwards if you're having, you know, complete energy issues, or if you're having nausea or vomiting because you're getting dehydrated, or you end up in the medical tent because you're not getting enough fluids. So we do recommend having electrolytes in conjunction to water. So some people do, you know, one, like this guy could have one bottle is just straight water, one bottle is your electrolyte mix. But again, that's a very individualized personal thing. But it is something where we want to pay attention to hydration, but that also includes, you know, keeping balance with your electrolytes and with salt and things like that, which can be done, you know, with foods and different things at the aid stations as well. But those electrolyte mixes can be really helpful. And then, you know, the same thing here. Yes, hydration is a huge part of it, but then the fueling part too. We kind of joke that ultras are long distance eating competitions because food is fuel, and fuel keeps you running, and then that makes you finish and feel good and have a great experience. So that's the biggest thing. And again, like I kind of said, the aid stations have a lot of good snacks and a good variety, and they pay attention to dietary needs. They definitely, like, you can see Coke in the background. I think I love Coke during a race because sugar, sugar caffeine. They have pickles, pickled juice, like all the stuff to get your salts, to balance your electrolytes, to have your carbs and your proteins and whatever, and hopefully fit the snacks that suit you well. A rule of thumb, like I generally go to, of, you know, if I see something at the table at the aid station and it sounds good, you know, generally that could be my body telling me, like, I need that. You know, so if I look at potato chips and I'm like, oh, wow, that just sounds amazing, I might think to myself, hey, do you think your salt is low? Because maybe I'm craving that salty food. You know, so it's just something to pay attention to. But hopefully you guys have been practicing this. And that's, again, where that drop bag could come in, where it's like, I'm pretty devout with, I use my gels, and I have these gels that I know really work well for me, and I'm going to want those gels, but I also don't want to carry like 15 gels on me. So I could use that drop bag and have my resupply, so I can dump my garbage and resupply the gels that I know work for me. So same thing, if you want to have your, you know, bean burrito wrap or something specific, you know, in your drop bag and things like that, like that's a really great way to stay on top of the fueling that you know is going to work for you. And so a lot of that comes into, look at the aid stations, look at the distance between the aid stations, because it might be shorter in distance, but it certainly could add up over time. And that's where you could get behind if you didn't plan accordingly. So then heat management. So again, for some of you, it might not be hot. For me, it will be hot because I'm not used to that. And I haven't looked at the forecast, but the big thing here is just stay hydrated, obviously, but then cool yourself off. So this guy's wearing a great sun shirt. He's got a hat on. He's sponging himself off with the ice water or like an ice bath, like all of those things. You can wear ice bandanas. The biggest thing we see people run into issues as they get out at mountain conditions. They have that prolonged exposure to the sun and to the elements. They get overheated and then things start going downhill from there. So really being proactive about your heat management can be a great idea, or a critical idea. Poles versus no poles. So this one, it's dependent on you, because there's a lot, like obviously day one is basically climbing a ski hill. Poles, this is the little the cheat code that I always use is I creep on the aid station and I look at all their pictures and I try to get an idea, are most people using poles or are they not? So that doesn't mean that if I personally don't like poles, I'm not going to use them if I don't like them. So obviously, but I love poles personally. So I'm going to look at the elevation profile of how many big, long climbs are there, and is it worth carrying those poles? So I think day one, yes, absolutely, because it's basically a hill climb. But I think the big thing is I always look at, like, day two is a little bit more of a question mark for me. I'm going to scroll back. So looking at the profile, because yeah, you have a monstrous climb, but then you have a whole bunch of punchy up down terrain that I always look at it. Are poles worth the weight to carry? And for some people, the answer is absolutely yes, because I have that monstrous climb in the beginning. For the full pine, I have a second big climb right off, like not too far after that. And then I have a monstrous climb at the end. That's when I'm tired, and that's where those poles could really make a huge difference. So I would say if you gravitate towards poles, it is not a bad idea to have poles on this, but it is that middle ground. I always look at it of, is it worth the time to take the pole out for this? And then, if I'm going up and down, up and down, up and down, taking poles out, putting poles away, taking poles out, putting poles away, it can just be a lot of energy spent. But at the same time on this one, if I know that I prefer to have poles for that big, long climb, and then I'll put them away for the descent, then I'll take them back out for the next big climb. And then I put them away and I leave them away until that last climb. And that could be worth every little bit of carrying those poles for those 3 big, long climbs in and of itself. So really the poles versus no poles is a totally specific to each individual thing. But it seems, day 3, in my mind, I would say poles don't seem, unless your legs are absolutely trashed, where I have done a race where my legs got super trashed and my poles were essentially my crutches, and my poles helped me get to the finish line. So depending on the wear and tear of your body, poles could be certainly helpful on day 3, but from a course profile, if your body is doing well, if you're managing your recovery, if you're fueling in your recovery from a nutrition standpoint is on par, then hopefully, you can toss aside the poles for day 3 and you can go spin out your legs on a fun course. And then recovery. So I kind of was just talking about that, but I think the biggest thing here, when I did Transrockies run the first time, it was a 6-day stage race. I had done a 3-day stage race beforehand, and I really love that because no matter the 3 days, it's just as important, but it was really noticeable for me on the 6th day because one, I had travel of driving from Canada to Colorado. So I had 2 days of just driving, get to Colorado, and then start the 6-day stage race. So when I was traveling, my nutrition was a little bit more all over the place because I'm driving. I wasn't recovered. And I remember after stage 1, I was like, oh my goodness, I am not fueled properly and my energy is lacking. And so that's when I had that aha moment at Transrockies run a couple years ago, where I was like, the fueling afterwards and the eating in between and before is almost just as important as fueling properly during the race and all of that. So making sure that you are rejuvenating your body with good food. And so that's obviously being really mindful about whether it's a recovery drink or it's having your good carb to protein, whatever snack that you want to just have right after you finish your run, or it's going straight and getting a big juicy burger or whatever. Making sure that you're really focusing on nutrition, obviously during the race, like we talked about, but immediately after, and then all of the meals in between. Because I think that is such a huge thing that can make a big difference in your body rejuvenating and being ready to roll 3 days in a row. And I think that was one thing for me when I did my first stage race. It was really amazing to me. If you haven't done a stage race before, for me, it was just like, oh my goodness, I was so surprised that my body really bounced back quite well. It was my mind that was the harder thing to bounce back between stage races, because my body just got into a rhythm, and I had my recovery protocol, I had my nutrition protocol, and my body knew what to do. It was my mind saying, oh my goodness, I'm so tired, I don't know if I can do this again. But then you get going and you're actually feeling good, and you can do more than you think, really is what I'm trying to get at here. So it's super fun. But there's strategy to make it more enjoyable, and the fueling during and after is a huge part of it. But then the other part would be figuring out your little extra tricks to help facilitate recovery. And so Transrockies does a really good job with Chillville, is what they call it. So it's like a hangout place, like an expo. So I'll have a tent there that's WildPeak Collective, so you can come say hi, tell me how you're doing. But they have other vendors there that generally they have recovery tools like compression boots and massage guns, and they might have massage therapists there. They have athletic trainers there. So they have the whole gamut, where using the compression boots or bringing your own, or putting on compression sleeves, putting your feet up, having your significant other, whoever, massage your feet a little bit or whatever, using those little tools to facilitate blood flow, facilitate like just healing and flushing your system from the day out on the trail, to prep it and get it ready for doing this again the next day. That can make a huge difference as well. Those were kind of the things here. So I am going to, a big thank you to Halo, big thank you to Transrockies, WildPeak Collective. We are the official coaching partner for all of the Transrockies Run Race Series. So I'm at basically all of the races. So I hope to see you guys there. Come say hi, tell me you're on this call. But let's chat more. Tell me, I'm going to stop sharing this so I can see you guys. But let me know if there's any questions.
I have a question. This is a little bit about logistics. Like, I think I'm at the Hampton Inn, and everything lists.
So Maya, look out for you. I'm there.
Oh, are you there? Oh, good.
Yeah, this is Rachel.
Sorry. Oh, I hear him come off. And so logistically, like each different start, is everything like geographically close? Will we, like maybe talk a little bit about that, like each day getting to the start, where we finish, where's Chillville, all that stuff.
Yeah, let's go ahead, Maggie.
I mean, Chillville is like a 5-minute drive from the Hampton Inn, which is where like a lot of the locations are.
Okay.
So a lot of the logistics, like Brittany said, have kind of like formed recently. So she might be able to talk a little bit more about that. And if it's something we can't answer, we can ask her husband and we can email you. But they're pretty strategically located. So the Hampton should be pretty good. I don't know what the roads are like around there, so don't put like walking, but you may be walkable as well. But I don't know that you want to walk more after all that. So
active recovery. I do know that stage 3, where did I write that? Yeah, so stage 3, where it starts by the high school, is a 10 to 15 minute drive out of town.
Okay.
So so I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. I can find it. Which one was I on? This one. Okay, so we can see this is stage 3 over here by the high school. Or yeah, that's the high school there. Oh, so here is where we get to, there's Big Bear Lake. So downtown is right in here. So stage 2, I could switch over to that. Should change my map. Which one? I should have played with that one a little bit before. Yeah, okay, this one here. So here, stage 2 starts and finishes right in downtown. So that one, I don't know where the Hampton Inn is, but you're pretty darn close to getting to start and finish for there for stage 2. But if we look back, this shows us again where the high school is right over here. So this is stage 3. And then stage 1 is, I believe that would be, yeah, because Snow Summit is right here, but that's the old stage 1. So stage 1 is actually this one over here. So again, it's a little bit out of town to get over here to Bear Mountain.
So I'm assuming when we like check in for packet pickup, then there'll be information about, obviously we're all going to have to park somewhere and just all that, right? Like where you go, what time to be there, you know, all that logistical kind of stuff. Okay.
So I just went to the Peaks and Pines website, where they are really good about having, you know, here's where all of that information was on the courses, but then
okay,
let's see, it's more, so I'm sure there's random stuff in the FAQ and all of that, but if you go into here of schedule and format, that's where I'm at right now, where it tells you, you know, so run format. Okay, that's, so we go to schedule. So stage 0, that's Thursday. That's, here's the shakeout run. It's at Christmas Tree Corner, which Christmas Tree Corner is essentially, that's where stage 2 starts. I think that's packet pickup. That's where the shakeout run is starting, but that's also where stage 2 is starting. So I think Christmas Tree Corner is kind of their hub, but obviously
that's Chillville, and that should be, I mean,
yeah.
that's 1.5 miles. I mean, I think I'm trying to look on Google what the roads look like, but it's 1.5 miles from Chillville. So like if you're up for walking, that could be like a good recovery. But that's up to you. Like,
so in here, this one,
park, like,
yeah, this one is inaccurate because remember that day 1 is no longer at Snow Summit, because Snow Summit's going to be a little closer than Bear Mountain, which is the next ski resort over. So that's inaccurate. So it's probably a little bit further than the 5-minute drive.
Okay.
I can just say from having done Transrockies runs before, they're very good about giving you logistics, directions every night on, remember, this is where you know, if you're leaving from here, give yourself X amount of time. And,
okay,
you know, if you need to carpool, they'll tell us that there's limited parking, carpool, but they've been very good at other events on making sure everybody understood that, those kind of things.
perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? I think Brittany was really thorough. I think,
yeah,
other than, you know, the few, what Patty said, the questions about logistics that they can answer when you get there, like,
yeah.
It's very, very thorough.
Can I just, because the thinking that the pint thing, the 4 pint is encompassing my 33 miler that I'm only doing on that one day, right?
Right.
Right. So I was listening to that. Wow, that's a lot with some of you doing the 3-day thing. That's tough. And I'm freaking out on just my 33 miles. And I've never even been to Big Bear.
Me either.
Yeah. And
no, we're all freaking out. Don't, we're all freaking out.
Michelle, you're in the same place as me. Are you doing the 4 pint? Will you be doing my 33 miles on Saturday?
I want to give it a go. I do want to give it a go. Like it'll be a lot for me, and it's hard for me. You know, I do road and trails. It's hard for me to gauge like that much, especially with some of those monster climbs. Like that's where I'm kind of like, I'm going to give it a go and just see how I'm doing, you know, time wise and feeling and everything.
Yeah. So you're not sure.
Yeah.
Right, and that's kind of where I said in the beginning, I'm signed up for the full pint. And I want to, you know, I'm kind of wondering if day 2 I would switch and just that day do the shorter, but I haven't decided yet. And looking at that big downhill and the thing, I'm like, oh, maybe I should just stay out there and just keep cruising along. I'll see when I get out there. And I live in such a flat area and haven't been up in mountains that I know it's going to be you know, a lot harder on my legs just with the uphill and the downhill. So.
Yeah, you're right. I did go to Big Bear to try it out, but I didn't get into the seeing where things were situated. I didn't go into the town. I was with a few people, went up there a couple of weeks ago. We did like 10 miles. We got lost. The trees give you, I mean, am I right? The trees give you shade, right? We're not exposed all that time. Is that right?
I don't think so. I actually haven't been out there, but my husband ran some of the courses last year when they were out scouting. So it does seem, and if you look at the pictures, it does seem like a lot of the pictures are, you know, you're not in like the open foothills, you are going through the trees. But again, I would still look at that of like, it is still obviously, you know, but like a dry climate that can just zap you. And just because you are in the trees doesn't mean that you're not going to feel the effect.
For sure.
It should give you a little reprieve.
Yeah, it does. There's a big difference. You go under the trees and you get relief, and then you know, then it comes through the trees and you're warm again. The dirt is very, very, very dry. If it's dirt, it's kind of like, I've got a hybrid shoe. I didn't want to get a real technical shoe because it was heavy on my feet. I'm good with downhill. I practice downhill, and then I figure I would go as fast as I could downhill. You have to have all your wits about you. You have to be able to look down and look up and see what's coming. So it's like your brain has to keep alive. The up, I will probably just trudge that up a little bit, and I'm planning on no poles. I'm only doing the 133 miler. I am not used to doing poles. I'm a road runner. I use my core. Yeah, I just won't be doing poles now. I can't suddenly start training with them. But I mean, when you said hot, will it start chilly and kind of, you know, end up in the 80s, or how would it be when you say it's going to be hot?
That's the typical mountain climate where they're like a kind of like mid-country alpine. It's usually pretty chilly in the mornings, and then it gets pretty hot and the sun's intense. But I
looked it up and it was like 50 to 70, it said.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It looks wonderful.
Peak
Maybe
or
50s to
starting?
70s.
Yeah.
Just 70s the whole day, you think?
Yeah, in the 70s.
It said on the high it went to
the apps
70
right now,
Yeah.
but that can always change.
Well, that's doable. I did Vegas marathon. We started at about 38 degrees and I was ending at 85. And that was it was my fastest marathon. I just steamed down the hill and didn't even have glasses on, but I run cold. So, and I'm in California. So I was thinking it would be the 80s, but
I think none of you are probably going to really think it's hot based on where you guys live,
no breeze.
To be honest.
When I was, there was no breeze when I was there. It was just very still.
Yeah, I think it'll matter about elevation or altitude and how you deal with that, and just staying hydrated will make all the difference. To be honest.
Oh yeah, the altitude. I got a little bit more tired. Takes your wind away a little bit. You after you've done the hills, it's just you just feel. It's not like you're out of breath. You just feel a bit more tired. It kind
your
of
legs will get heavier for sure.
Yeah, that's that altitude. Yeah, because I'm not used to altitude, so we went down to feel that through, and 10 miles felt it was tough. And when I was thinking to myself, it's not even a third of the way. It's grueling. So you guys that have signed up for that 3-day thing, that altitude, it kind of takes a little bit out of you. Yeah, it just, you get a little bit more tired. I was looking at packet pickup. We're trying to figure out, with me only on that 1-day Saturday, where I'm only driving down on the Friday for packet pickup. Is there packet pickup that goes through the afternoon, or is it just a morning thing? I was kind of I've got to look through that thing. It wasn't clear to me.
You can do packet pickup for a single day. So packet pickup single day 33 mile and 15 mile is 5:30 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. before
on the day.
restart.
But
you can do it
Friday,
that morning.
right? You can pick
Well,
up Friday.
Friday says, okay, yeah, it does say 10 a.m. to noon on Friday and 4 to 6 p.m.
Okay. So I can pick up between 4 and 6 as well. Thinking about driving down there on the Friday and making it if it was too tight. So there is an afternoon pickup too.
Yes.
Okay. What else?
I'm gonna need to drop. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing everybody.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah, same
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
I
Bye-bye.
look
Yeah.
out for you. I look out for you. Yeah, I was gonna that girl that's at the Hampton in. Yeah, I feel a little bit on my own. My son has signed up to do it, but he's also in Wildland Fire Academy, and he may not be able to come with me. So then, not coming with me makes me feel a bit scared. And my running club.